All right, Prime Suspects 2025 version, new year, same stellar stalwarts, Adam Bjorn and Prime Sports co-founder Joe Brennan Jr. Today's topics, the weekend that was for Prime, Novig's no holds barred new marketing strategy, and DraftKings launches a new subscription service giving members better odds on the bet types that are most profitable for the book. Diving into the latest from inside Prime Sports, Adam, week 18 in the NFL, always a squirrely one for bettors, trying to decipher who cares, who's out, who's in, and for how long, making for some intriguing betting market dynamics, both pregame and in-game. We've also seen the college football playoff field narrowed from 8 to 4 since we last convened. All this considered, how's the past week been for Prime?
Bloodbath. Absolute classic bloodbath. I mean, the number movements, just things landed. That Saturday night game, it landed on the 2, really? We're going to get middled on 2? Yeah, it just brutal across the board, brutal live, brutal pre, brutal Ohio, brutal New Jersey. I hope this isn't a telltale sign of the year ahead.
All right, well, maybe something instead of the rough start to 2025 that might look a bit brighter. Any noteworthy anecdotes or surprises after grading 2024 regular season futures across the NFL?
No, I mean, the future positions are all right. Again, it's really hard with Ohio wanting to get too in-depth into the futures with it. You know, you're paying 20% of that as you take the bet in the month that you take it rather than waiting till the end. You know, New Jersey's a little bit different than that, but we didn't really sort of lean into those things like I have many years in the past. Hope to do that more sort of going forward once, you know, there's no carryover losses. And there's a lot of business decisions as to why you do and don't do certain things. They're not things I ever had to worry about before. So understanding this now, the nuances. Right now, I believe we just don't want Buffalo. But for me, the Bills-Lions Super Bowl would be the one to watch. You know, both fans are getting an opportunity there. So we can balance that out and get some liquidity in that market before that time. But nothing pressing that we couldn't get our way out of over the next few weeks.
All right, well, from one low-margin sportsbook operator to another, albeit this one taking a much different approach. Our water cooler segment this week. In the last week, guys, sweepstakes exchange Novig has riled up gambling Twitter with its signing of Taylor Mathis as the company's chief winning officer. Mathis, a sports betting content creator with more than 200,000 followers on Twitter, is now promoting Novig to her audience and has started by pushing parlays. Tons of takes about this across Twitter, including one suggestion from @BeMoreEV that this marks a shift in Novig's strategy to attract, quote, the squarest groups. Almost said the sharpest groups, but I think BeMoreEV was making it clear that this is attracting the squarest groups. Joe, would love to get your point of view on this seemingly sudden marketing pivot from a platform that entered the market with sharp price-led messaging.
I guess Harvard kids can be attracted by boobs. You know, what I take this as is more than likely, and I don't know this to be the case, is that, you know, I mean, Novig has investors, they've made the commitment to shifting to sweepstakes. It hasn't really popped yet for them. Bringing in somebody, and I thought that the way that you referred to her as a sports betting content creator was actually a brilliant euphemism for what Taylor's gig seems to be. I mean, I'm not going to apologize for it. It's seemingly I went to her Twitter account earlier since she's linked to it through all these things. And right now, pinned to the top of her account are not what I would consider picks videos. They're emphasizing a different part of her game. And that just, okay. They would not be the first guys out there to try and bring together, sports betting and very attractive looking women. I think the thing where I don't think that gets them necessarily in hot water. So what? A sports book gets a bikini girl to go out there and make content for them, stop the presses, or even the push into parlays. I mean, look, if you're under 35 here in the regulated U.S. marketplace, you're interested in parlays. That's just the way that the market has been groomed, has been brought along. And so getting into that business, okay, sure, fine. I'm not going to get into the weeds about the pricing and everything like that. The dissecting of it, Adam's much better at that. I think the thing that I find alarming about those guys, especially for a couple of Harvard-educated kids, is now this announcement that they're hiring college ambassadors. And this, I think, frankly, is one of the stupidest fucking things I've seen anybody in the sports betting biz do, since it's become very clear with regulators. They don't want us near college campuses. They don't want us near college kids. Okay. That's the regulated sports betting market, right? So Ohio, Massachusetts, like there's places where we've seen serious fines laid down. I remember being present for our Ohio licensing hearing in Columbus. And right before they got to us, talking about us, they dropped a $350,000 fine on Barstool Sports for being cheeky enough to set up trailers and buses on the other side of the borderline between Ohio State University and the city of Columbus. They're like, yeah, but we don't care. 350 grand fine, and said, you ever do it again, you're going to lose your license. Now, okay, that applies to us, the regulated sports books. But do you think that that's going to stop law enforcement or regulators or anything like from going after you if suddenly you're running a college ambassadors program? It's like waving a red cape in front of a bull. I don't know what these guys are thinking. You know, God bless them if they want bikini girls or whatever to raise their profile. But doing something like that, the college ambassador program that they just had her retweeting, is just colossally stupid.
Adam, plenty to unpack here. And as an operator of a low margin sports book, what do you think of the trade-offs for Novig to deviate from its original positioning in hopes of acquiring other customers?
I'm curious what their original positioning was. Ran into the guy, is it Jacob? Is he the guy that was at the front of this thing? Maybe 3-4 G2Es ago, I had a conversation with him at the Paris Beer Garden at one of the SBC parties or something like that. Clearly had no idea what business he was in, clearly had no idea what product he was building, clearly had no idea about much at all, and sort of was defending, I'm not sure what. They've been non-existent the whole way. I presume they're about death. They're in the desert looking for a cup of water. I guess Taylor's the cup of water, and I don't expect them to be around that much longer. It's a nothing product from what I've seen, and they're just, I guess what I'd like to know is who's those investors, who's the people that put money into these things. Like, we've got some stuff that, might be a bit more enticing and a bit more ability to grow and have a part of the business and industry and stuff like that. That's the one out of all of them. Like even Profit Exchange, there's some of those that I think have some life in it. This Novig thing was kind of the dead as it walked out.
I think one of the things that's interesting about Novig, like when they first started out, and they first met, and they're nice guys, for a couple of Harvard educated guys, they're still nice guys. But, their original business plan was to not charge any vig on like square players, just, the guys, everyday player coming in there. And that somehow their revenue model was going to be charging actually higher vigs or higher transaction fees on bigger players or institutional players or syndicates or whoever came in. But think about, it was like, well, think about that as a model. Okay. If what you're saying is your job in life is to bring in as much chum fish for a bunch of sharks to chew apart, and that's how you're going to make your money. Yeah, that's a really tough business model to get through here, right? So seeing that they've gone, I guess, down market and emphasized more of a recreational player in this thing, okay, they've got their work cut out for it. I think it also shows that there's, a lot of people who entered the industry a few years ago when times were high and there's a lot of irrational exuberance with looking to do variations on things. And there was a lot of people telling us that our model was dead and, the new model was going to be like exchanges and that. The exchange model, by the way, and believe me, early on, Betfair, that was one of those ideas. I'm like, wow, I wish I had that one. I was a huge Betfair fan. I think I still have my money in my account. But it shows that a lot of people who came into this during the big rush after PASS was overturned in 2018 with a lot of, we'll call them interesting ideas, but maybe untested and maybe not entirely thought through about what the dynamics of the marketplace. It really shows how what Adam was saying about like investors and who they were backing. And they're like, there wasn't a lot of knowledge, seriousness, or, a lot of research being done into just really basic things about the sports betting marketplace. And I think that's now led to Novig, their choices either pivot or die. And this is what they're pivoting to. You can understand the pressure from investors to be able to do that. But it is another example of people who came in talking really big about how they were going to change the industry fundamentally, and the industry changed them.
All right, well, guys, from one big marketing swing to another, our look ahead segment this week, DraftKings users can now buy better odds via subscription. Per a January 3rd article in Sportico by Eben Novi-Williams, hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, DraftKings Sportsbook Plus will cost members $20 a month, and in return, bettors will receive what the company calls stepped up boosts for parlays where individual legs are minus 500 or less. 2-leg parlays will see payouts increase by 10%, with the boost growing as parlays get bigger. DraftKings said in a statement the offering will start with select eligible customers only in New York, without specifics on who would qualify. One detail we do have, the maximum eligible bet, $25. Joe, this is seemingly another attempt to offset the 51% tax rate in the Empire State. Do you think it'll be successful enough for DraftKings to expand it to more states?
I got to be honest and say, like, my immediate first blush reaction was, all right, let's jump up and down on DraftKings, right? Then I kind of like, okay, well, let's take a moment here to be a little more open-minded, because that's one of my New Year's resolutions here, is to listen more, be more open-minded, okay? Be more open to these things. I guess if you're DraftKings and you're in the business to make, it's, all right, we're not in the business of religion, we're in the business to make money. And if DraftKings Brain Trust has now said, like, well, in order to make money in New York, we feel like we have to go to this and come up with something that, since this isn't gaming revenue, it can't be taxed at the 51%. It's promotional. I've heard a lot of this stuff back and forth. It'd be great to actually see this in action before, either praising it or sticking a spear through it. So I guess I'll reserve final judgment on this. But one of the things that it does make me think about is like, wow, they're really opening themselves up to the competition here right now. Like, if you're FanDuel, it's okay, well, how do you respond? If I was the CMO of FanDuel, I'd be like, hey, look, you don't have to pay extra money to get the best odds. You can get them. Everybody gets them here at FanDuel. And I would open DraftKings up like a tin of fish on this one. And since the type of player that they're going after is more susceptible to marketing campaigns and things like that, I do wonder if there's an opportunity for FanDuel to really bang these guys. Now, at the same time, if DraftKings gets any traction whatsoever with this, everybody in the industry is going to go after that. I think you have a difficult position to selling something where you're saying to, like, unless you pay us this fee, you're going to get the worst of it compared to these people over here. You're not really selling anything special or new or access to something exclusive. You're essentially selling coupons. So selling coupon books or boost books or however you want to put it, and then to a select few eligible customers, like, God, how do you qualify for that? There's so much nuance in this one. I don't know. I give DraftKings credit, though. They are living out loud over there in their little, number 2 position in the marketplace, trying to figure out, like, what do we do? They dug themselves a hole in New York that then turned into a big hole in Illinois and in Ohio and other states with these increasing tax rates. So give them credit for thinking out loud and doing this on the fly on how to improve their revenue position. But at the same time, I don't think they've hit it yet.
Adam, previously on this show, I've heard you quote Ted Lasso, curiosity over judgment. I'm picking up on that notion from Joe. When it comes to this topic, wondering what you're going to think, especially in terms of whether or not you anticipate more operators experimenting with new revenue models such as subscription services.
Well, that one didn't kick in this year, I guess, because it was all judgment from the minute that was released. And as to FanDuel's response, I'm not sure they're off the floor laughing yet to be able to make a response. Yeah, you look at the headliners, like, what the hell are these guys doing? My other question is, how the hell does this get through all the steps of approval for the person at the end of the chain to go, oh, this is a good idea? But when you dive into it a bit further, if you're a $20 bettor and you do 10 teamers or more, and your $20 wins you $1,000, and now your $20 is going to win you $2,000. You're not winning that often, but it's going to cost you $20 a month or $240 a year or something to have those opportunities. It's not as idiotic as it seems once you sort of get under the hood a bit, but yeah, it's just different. And I guess it's, once you get past it and you read under it and whatnot, but I don't expect it to stick around or expand, but they're really showing the difference between them and FanDuel. As I've said, FanDuel isn't the FanDuel that was competing with DraftKings pre-PASPA. They're a global conglomerate that's probably the leading gambling company on the planet. And DraftKings are still the kids in the playground trying to work out what they're doing here and find a different way to compete. Right now, they're just really doing it on brand. They've gotten their players that they have and whatnot, but they're getting chipped away by FanDuel, who's a professional at this. They're doing this all around the world. They are the true professional in the gambling business. So I think it just shows the difference between who they are now versus where they came from. Again, good luck to them. But yeah, this was an interesting one to start the year.
The other thing, it's funny, you think about this is like two sides of kind of the same issue, like what we were talking about with Novig, where they're at, and then DraftKings, like where they're at on this one. And it's always this desire to find a silver bullet or a gimmick, right? Like what's this thing that we can do really quickly and it'll just change everything. And unfortunately, I think, just like being a winning sports bettor is a grind. There's no silver bullets to make yourself a consistently winning sports bettor. And the same is true of being a consistently winning sports book. To Adam's point, like FanDuel is, Paddy Power, Betfair, and all that. They've got years and years of experience on doing this and honing their skills before they got there, and everything from operational to promotional to logistical. And so they've just got it down cold. I find the FanDuel brand kind of boring at times when you compare it to DraftKings, right? But they grind it out. They just grind it out. And DraftKings is in a number 2 position where it's very difficult for them to say, how do we break out? How do we get over these guys? So this hunting for silver bullets to do that, the same way Novig is maybe hunting for silver bullets to pivot and stay alive. Again, it shows that both companies kind of are a little out of touch with what it's really going to take to succeed in this industry. But, DraftKings, give them credit, even if it is, like to Adam's point, like how many chains did this have to go through? How many links in the chain to get to let's do this. I mean, everything from NFTs to, the winner's tax and that, if you recall, also remember, in the wake of the winner's tax in New York, the New York regulators said, no, nay, never, no more on any way that you guys are going to try and offset stuff with fees or whatever like that in our state. So a lot of this might be moot. Like the New York regulators might look at it, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. This is a fee that you're trying to do to offset your taxes. No, we're not going to allow it. So whatever. But, give them credit. The DraftKings, they're the try anything outfit there at the top. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. And then wonder, what's next? What crazy idea might they try next?
In that vein, Joe, as I've heard you guys breaking this down, I think back to a book I read recently called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And in this case, DraftKings' obstacle would be that number 2 position in market, needing to get creative if they want to get to number 1. I'm also reminded of those old school Avis car rental commercials. We're number 2, we try harder. So trying to harness all of this, I know the need for innovation has been a recurring theme on this show, not wanting the sports betting space to get too stagnant. And while any one attempt may succeed or fail spectacularly, we'll see what's to come of DraftKings Sportsbook Plus. More broadly, any final thoughts from you guys just on what it means to see a big swing like this at a time like this?
Well, I think it's interesting that people are writing books that are reheating Marcus Aurelius. The obstacle is the way. I love it. I think we said it like a week or two ago. Innovation's tough, like real innovation's tough in this industry right now. But I think it's because everybody's kind of painted themselves in a kind of really constipated corner here right now. So I think there needs to be something like this with DraftKings. I think they need to back up a little more out of that corner. Everybody needs to back up a little more out of the corner, except I guess FanDuel, because they own the corner. Right. And this is where the opportunities exist for people in sweeps and alternative industries to be able, since right now they kind of have the latitude to be able to innovate, to be able to do something that could eventually be the thing that, if everybody insists on remaining in that corner in the regulated industry, could eventually, if it's proven, then get regulated and then come in and kick everybody's ass. But right now, again, even in sweeps, you see this thing with Novig. You saw the thing last week with Fliff. saying that they were going to go to once a month payouts and things like that. All the hopes and dreams that people might have had for sweeps being potentially an opportunity for innovation so far, they don't seem to be materializing. So it would be interesting to see if somehow that tide gets shifted in the new year.
All right. Well, to the audience, whether or not you have any interest in subscribing to DraftKings Sportsbook Plus, you can subscribe to Prime Suspects for free, and we hope you'll take a quick moment to do so if you haven't already on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're watching or listening. Thanks as always for making us a part of your week. Enjoy the college football playoff semifinals, NFL wildcard weekend, and anywhere else your wagers may take you, and we'll catch you again next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at Prime Sportsbook, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.